Live from the Panera Studios, it's the Reading with Robin show, brought to you each week by my friends at Panera Bread, where their Pink Ribbon Bagel campaign just started to support Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You can support local breast cancer charities just by purchasing a Pink Ribbon Bagel throughout October. So go to your local Panera Bread and support this amazing campaign with the Pink Ribbon Bagel all throughout October. Panera is my favorite place to stop by for a cup of coffee, hang out with friends, and it's a great place for book clubs to meet. It's all at Panera Bread. And now, enjoy the show. Awesome, dazzling debut alert. The Wangs versus the World out today. Author Jade Chang has covered arts and culture as a journalist and editor. She's a recipient of a Sundance Fellowship for Arts Journalism, the AIGA Winterhouse A Award for Design Criticism, and the James D. Houston Memorial Scholarship from the Squaw Valley Community of Writers. There is nothing like a debut, and I'm on the Wangs.com, Jade's site, and it is, I don't know, there's not one accolade for this book missing. It's a fall 2016 Barnes & Noble Discover pick, an October Indie Next pick, Publishers Lunch Fall 16 Buzz Book, Nylon Amazing Book for Fall, Pop Sugar Best Fall Book for Fall. It is everywhere. I could spend the whole time just talking about all this and the amazing events coming up, and I am thrilled to have her on the show. Jade Chang, welcome to Reading with Robin.
Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for having me.
Like we were saying, Jade and I were having a little chit-chat off air, and I received the advance galley for this book months ago, and it arrived with this beautiful enamel pin and this beautiful red Jiffy package. So I was like, ooh, what's in here? And this gorgeous galley popped out, and learning that you are, and cover arts and culture, it's no surprise that this is just such a dazzling display of this novel. So I was wondering, first off, did you have much to do with the artwork and just the way the whole presentation of this book just lets the reader know you are in for a treat, and you're in for a huge treat. So I was wondering about that, because I know that doesn't always, the author doesn't often have much to do with it, but I got to think you had your hand in this.
Yeah. Well, I got to say, I got very, very lucky with Houghton, my publisher, being excited and enthusiastic about the book and being really willing to kind of pull out all the stops a little bit. So with the book cover, I definitely, we definitely went a couple of rounds with that, and I think we're all pretty happy with what we ended up with. And then I think, the rest of the marketing was kind of based off of that cover. But yeah, that was a really fascinating process because I had worked at Goodreads for a couple of years before I sold this book, and so I saw so many books come through, and I saw so many different book covers, and it got to the point where you can kind of almost tell never judge a book by its cover, but you can kind of start to tell.
Of course we do, Jade.
But we totally do. Exactly.
Of course we do. Yes. But sometimes, and they sometimes start to look sort of the same. And so when I see a real standout cover, and if you're you're listening right now to Reading with Robin, and I'm speaking with debut novelist Jade Chang, The Wangs versus the World. It's just out. It's this amazing, gorgeous gold cover with red, little circles all in different hues. And the gold, the inside is gold. And so the book makes sense on so many levels, the artwork. But we do judge. I didn't realize you were at Goodreads, so that's a whole other conversation to have. I can't. Now I'm like, my mind is spinning that way. When a book comes and arrives this way, it is an important, it says take note. This is something special. And we were just talking also off air about Jamie Attenberg. She's one of my favorite authors, author of St. Maisie and the Middlesteins, and I know she has a new book coming out this spring. And she says, fresh, energetic, and completely hilarious. The Wangs versus the World is my favorite debut of the year, and I'm going to just totally agree with Jamie and say that it is such a funny, you're welcome. It is so funny and smart, and I've been posting and tweeting about it, and you can find more about this book at thewangs.com. You can also see some interesting handles. So it's the Jade Chang on Twitter, and on Instagram it's Hello Jade Chang, right? And on Facebook you're Jade Chang Books. So so you have to do a little work as a reader, not as the reader, but if you want to find out more information about this, it all makes sense. You can just Google Jade Chang and you'll find out all about this. But when I'm posting on Instagram or something, you don't assume, that you get the first hit and it's the person's name, or else you make a big mess on Instagram. And this book photographs so gorgeously, that you just have to celebrate it in all these ways. So your debut novel, it's a huge, big deal. I mean, and out with Houghton, such a wonderful publishing house. The idea for this story, I was reading about this party that you were at, and you were in the art world and just this whole excess. It's set in 2008. It is a heartwarming story. Like I said, it is just, it is so hilarious, and there's so much love in this book and family continuity and what it means to be part of a family through good and bad, and what the expectations are in a family, and what changes when life changes, and life will change. So, talk a little bit about the nugget of the story and your fabulously drawn characters. I'm telling everybody, Reading with Robin listeners, you don't want to miss The Wangs versus the World. Don't come back to me when you say you missed this book. Well, you won't miss it because it's not going anywhere. But this is one to put on your list. I cannot stress it enough. I'm really excited. If you can't tell, Jade, I'm really excited about this book.
Thanks, Robin. I'm blown away. I feel very grateful. Thank you. Well, okay, let's see. It definitely is definitely a story about a family. I think sort of in the abstract, one of the things I really wanted to do is that I wanted to write a book that simultaneously felt really fun and big and enjoyable, but also kind of dealt with like hard things and, kind of intellectually difficult things and emotionally difficult things, and that was able to do that with hopefully a spirit of kind of generosity. And so I think that was kind of always in my mind. The party that you referred to, in the late summer of 2008, it was actually a very timely party because it was a party for the Trump Tower Dubai.
Who knew, right? Can you imagine?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
who knew?
those are the things that happen that the serendipity of certain things, of stars aligning. When I ever saw that, I'm like, the word jumps right out at you. So this is happening the end of 2008, and here we are in 2016 with The Wangs versus the World. Right? Crazy.
Yeah.
So, okay, so back to the party.
But so I was working at this kind of luxury magazine, and part of my very strange job was to occasionally go to parties like this. And, so it was a party for a tower that had not yet broken ground. To date, it has never been built. But the party itself was crazy over the top. It was at this giant mansion in Bel Air. Christina Aguilera was there singing a cappella. Wolfgang Puck was there scattering 24-karat gold dust on hors d'oeuvres that he, passed out to people.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. As you do, with any shindig.
Exactly.
And it was just so, it was just so over the top that I think there was something about it that made me feel like, okay, this is it. Like, this is the end, or at least the beginning of the end, And it really felt like we were just at this moment where everything was about to change. And I think because of that, it made me that was really when I started kind of thinking of the world of this book. And then, this family that's lost their fortune and what happens to them after that.
I think that thank you for sharing that. To me, it is so fascinating the way a novel forms in an author's head, and the pieces that, there's that major part that the story gets built around, sort of, and all of the different things that happen in the author's life that you're bringing to the story, and the bigger story that you want to tell, and then creating the characters and tying it all together. And I found that really fascinating, and also using what you enjoy and bringing all of that into the book in some way, and having one of the characters be an artist, and different, and then you've got a brother who is a comedian, which I thought was really funny. But like you said, there's it is so thought-provoking, and I always talk about books. A lot of reading groups love to know, and they come to the Reading with Robin Facebook page, and they want to know, what should our book club read? There's so much material here to talk about, and there are so many books right now that talk about the immigrant, coming to America and finding their fortune in that. And so I so love that this is really like an opposite book, so it goes the other way. I think that is so brilliant as well, and such a standout storyline. And so certainly talk about that and how the family comes here, and just beautifully drawn characters that you really care about so much for so many different reasons. And this is the debut novel. I'm speaking with Jade Chang, and her book is just out. It's The Wangs versus the World. You can visit the website, thewangs.com, and get more information. But yeah, talk about their arrival to America, what brought them here, and where that connection is, and how it's why it's so important in the story.
So this is a family. There's a father, Charles Wang. He's the one who came to America. So his family history, the Wang family history, is kind of similar to my family history in that he is from, as my parents are, they're from families that for generations their families owned a lot of land in China, and then with World War II and the Communist Revolution and the Chinese Civil War, both sides of my family basically got phased out of China, essentially. And then my parents grew up in Taiwan, and along with a lot of families that were in kind of similar situations. And then my parents actually came to America for graduate school, and Charles Wang in the book, he comes to America basically to make his fortune. And I was always interested in that kind of offshoot of the Chinese diaspora. I think it's a group of people that doesn't really get written about a lot, or that I haven't seen kind of written about a lot.
I haven't either, and that's what I thought was so. I mean, there were so many parts about this book, and just really thinking about the whole story and how and it's a debut novel that I just thought were so clever and not done. So in a sea of so many books, when things stand out like that, I thought, like, oh my God, Jade did such an awesome job with this book. It's something that really, and I went back and read about, that diaspora.
Oh, you did?
Things that I just, because I was curious. I'm like, I didn't realize, and that, and so I love novels that make me want to learn more about the time period or what, that segment of population that's coming over, because you don't read as much about that.
Yeah, that makes me really happy. Thank you. I'm glad that it motivated
Thank you for the extra credit work.
Thank you.
More. I did. Yeah, I was very interested. I really was. And so Charles Wang comes to this country, right, to stake out his fortune
so
with a very special ingredient.
So his father in Taiwan was managing a urea factory. And urea, actually, this is a good example of how things just make their way into books. So I once wrote a story about perfume, and I interviewed a perfume maker who told me the very disgusting way that musk is extracted. And
familiar with the story. Yeah. So,
and then,
it's an ingredient.
Oh, yeah. Our most beautiful things are often made of very disgusting things. But there's a beauty in that, too,
Yes.
And she also told me about, she told me that urea was used in a lot of cosmetics, which always stuck with me. And then when I was working at Angelina, which is the luxury magazine that I was working at, when I went to the Trump party, one of my jobs was also to run the beauty section. And so I would get, all these cosmetics firms would send me lots of cosmetics. And I started reading the ingredients, and I saw that urea was, in fact, an ingredient on all of them. And what's used now is essentially like a manufactured version of urea. Urea is like a component of urine, essentially.
Right there in the word.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And so Charles, it's also used in fertilizer, so he thought that he was coming to America to kind of try to sell his father's urea to fertilizer manufacturers, but then he sees it on a cosmetics label, and he realizes that he can have this kind of glamorous life instead, and so he builds up a cosmetics fortune based on that, essentially.
So clever. And that becomes the story where it could be luck, timing, somebody's clever, and so from that, he just, it comes here and just, it's more than one could even really imagine, but he always has this dream, really, of going back to claim his heritage and his...
Yeah.
Right.
The land that the communists took away from his family.
And that becomes, that's a theme that's really kind of familiar in, Jews wanting to reclaim things that were taken from them in the Holocaust. That, so there are those parallels.
Yeah.
There were so many things to think about in this book, but setting it against the backdrop of the glamour of makeup, cosmetics, and all of this, and Bel Air, so you've got that sexy kind of read, and then this, juxtaposed to the family story and what was happening in 2008 in the economy and how very real those effects are and continue to be. So there's just so much in here. And then, so he loses his first wife. I mean, will you talk a little bit about the family? I just would love to just be in book club with you and just dissect this whole book because I love it. So Charles winds up with I don't know how much we should say, but he winds up he has a marriage, and then he has a second marriage, and you even spell Barbara the Babs way. So I'm like, no, who does that?
Well, she named herself after Barbara Streisand.
Well, I figured, that's right, we do know that. Okay, because when I first read it, I'm like, who does this? Wow, a Barbara fan. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I loved that on top of it. Did you send a copy to her in homage? Does she know?
No, but maybe I should.
Absolutely. She's a reader. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Send her one of those cute little lipstick pins, and, why not? Can't hurt. If you don't send it, she'll never.
No, it's a good idea. I will.
Yeah. Send it to her. So that you've got this family, and all of the children are just so. All right. So it really starts out with the end. The end of that. This. They have to leave. They have to pack up and go, and there's just so much. There's so much emotion attached to that. And also humor. So who are the children? What should we know about the children and Barbara?
Okay. Yeah. So the children were all born in America. They were all born here in Los Angeles, where I live. And their mother is dead. Their mother is also. She grew up here in LA. She's Chinese. She was a model. Charles loved her because she was so pretty. But she wasn't as kind of mischievous and interested in life as he was hoping that she would be. So she dies in kind of
I imagined that playing out, of course, as we all will do as reading this book, on the big screen, but very spectacularly. And and somebody has had her eye on Charles for quite a while.
Yeah, and then Barbara, who's slightly younger, knew Charles in Taiwan when he was a university student, and always kind of had him pegged as the kind of guy who would take on the world, which is what she wanted in a man. So when she heard that his first wife died, she made her way to America, got her love. But then meanwhile, she also had 3 stepchildren to contend with. The oldest one is Sina. She is in her late 20s when the book opens, and she's kind of a fallen art world it girl. She's a conceptual artist, but she's in retreat right now. She's living in a farmhouse in upstate New York. And then there's the middle son, Andrew, who is a college sophomore, and he is an aspiring stand-up comic, which was so fun to write.
I love that. I just thought that you just don't see that every day as part of somebody's bio. The son, Andrew, and aspiring, because that to me is the most fun thing to want to be, and to write that must have just been a really lot, had to be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. I loved it. I mean, I kind of secretly want to be a stand-up comic, so it was so fun to
I love that.
To write those sets and just to research that whole world was also really enjoyable for me. And then there's the youngest daughter, Grace, who always thinks they're leaving her out, and who is currently a high school senior at a boarding school in LA. But when the story starts, the money's all gone, so Charles has to pull them out of their schools, and then they set off on a cross-country road trip to try to get to the oldest daughter's house.
So think Chevy Chase and Family Vacation with the song playing in your background. But also, I just love the way Charles is so sort of matter of fact, and there's family honor, and there's tradition, and there's Dad says we're going, and the way the kids react. But one of my favorite parts of the book that I dog-eared was, you talk about Grace feeling like she's falling. She's always on sort of the outside, or she's missing something, and there's a 3-way phone call with the siblings.
Yeah.
I thought was so dead on. Oh, wait, here's Grace calling again. She's going to go crazy if we don't talk to her already, says Sana. Hold on, let me merge calls. And she thinks she's missing out. I'm so annoyed. Why haven't you been picking up? Where have you been all day? So this is me reading the Jewish version of the Wangs versus the Wangs. Get the inflection. And it's a brand new novel by Jade Chang. Visit thewangs.com. And they all set off to the oldest daughter who, this is certainly not what she's counting on, the family coming to live with her. But
definitely
she does,
not.
right? But you do the right thing, and when your family needs you, you're there for your family. And, again, can't give too much more away about the story, but it is just, like I said, smart, entertaining, page-turning, and thought-provoking, and all of the things that I love in a novel. And it is so fabulous, and there's so many layers to this book. And as I said when we opened, it's gotten so much attention, and it's just out. So there's so much attention yet to come. And I can only imagine on the tour what you're going to hear from people, in their different ways of connecting. Do you know which parts you want to read at the events yet? Have you picked those out?
Well, it's a little difficult finding entirely PG parts. So it kind of depends.
I know. That's why I love this book so much. There's that, too. It's oh so naughty in many places. I loved it. So what do you do? Just sort of edit? Or there's some parts, I guess, that you can find.
I think, it's, for the most part, it's kind of stuff that feels like it could be shocking, but is not actually that. It's not a kind of graphic sex scene or like a long line of swear words or anything like that. So I think it's
delicately placed, all very delicately placed.
Yeah.
And if all else fails, you could do stand-up routine, so you'll be fine either way. You'll have your audience.
I usually in the past when I've done just readings, I've read a couple of the stand-up scenes, which is really fun for
perfect.
me.
Yeah, perfect. I love that. And go to thewangs.com to see where Jade will be on the West Coast and on the East Coast. There is just too much wonderful. It's just fabulous. And also, like I said, the things that people will connect with in the book, and the things that you just will surprise you. And it's a family story. To me, there's just nothing better than a family story, family dynamics, background, history. and shared, insider family kind of stuff. The time period that you said it in is so pivotal. I think that there's that piece of it is, can't be overstated enough. So,
that time really kind of made this time,
It totally did, and it wasn't, really that long ago. It feels like a long time ago, and also just yesterday. Right. And, so the title is just perfect, The Wangs versus the World. And that's kind of like life, right? It's always sort of us against them and your family, right? In some ways, The Wang versus the World is a funny and touching novel about what it means to belong in America. That's from Pop Sugar. Find Jade on Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook. And how do you manage, before I let you go, how do you manage all of the social media? And what is your favorite? If you could only have one platform, which one would be your favorite?
I would not say that I am particularly excellent at managing social media. I think there's a lot of stuff that I probably haven't posted that my publicist at Houghton wishes that I had, but my favorite is definitely Instagram. I mean, I like looking at pictures. I look at so many words all day. It's fun to look at pictures.
I think, and this book really lends itself to that. And I'm sure as the tour moves along, they'll make sure that you're doing more and more of it, because they can be very pointed at what they'd like for social media, because it just, it becomes part of it. But I will vote for having you do more writing, and somebody else can post, because I can't wait for another book. Are you working on the next one? That's always like the one thing. It's like, okay, this is awesome. When's your next book coming out?
Right. Yeah. Right. What else have you got for us?
Exactly.
I am working on the next book, but we'll see what happens.
Very exciting. Well, I'm glad to know that, and I'm so excited for you, and I do hope to meet you when you're on the East Coast. And it's The Wangs versus the World, thewangs.com, and find Jade on Facebook, Twitter, more on Instagram, and do not miss this book. Available everywhere, your local booksellers, Amazon.com, everywhere books are sold. Jade, thank you so much for being on Reading with Robin.
Thank you so much, Robin. This was really fun. Thank you.
Loved it.